right? We almost are starting to take an entire team for granted. We just assume when the dust settles, they'll be in the NLCS and we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But we have to take an honest look at some of the things. It's a game of adjustments, no doubt. They give you a chance every night on the mound, the Walker Buehlers, the Clayton Kershaws. And I think what's interesting, listening to Clayton Kershaw kind of in-game last night, he talked about how Walker Buehler has helped him kind of modernize his regiment, look at different numbers. I think Mookie Betts was kind of ahead of his time, too, with the whole J.D. Martinez movement on how to get your bat head on plane and create this upward trajectory in Boston when they were together. And it's kind of synced up. But you go through challenges throughout the course of your career where you have to tinker. It's a game of constant adjustments at the plate. And what's kind of jumped out is that Mookie has had a little bit of trouble on pitches since he's put on a Dodger uniform inside the inner half of the plate. So you wonder why that is. I was driving last night to the airport, listening to the game on MLB on ESPN radio, and Doug Glanville was talking about speaking with Doc Roberts and how do we get Mookie going, or how do we keep him hot, and what are some of his keys throughout the course of his career that get him back on track? So let's dive in. He talked about staying taller. We talk about that often. Mookie's one of the best players in the game, okay? And I think sometimes in that star-studded lineup, we forget that he's even out there at times with the addition of Freeman and Turner and everything that goes with the Dodgers. You forget number 50 is still one of the best players in the game. And when he's right, offensively, base running, defensively, what he's able to do. And he has been on fire lately. Opposite field, Jack right there at Dodger Stadium against Alex Wood. Little breaking ball hangs too much over the heart of the plate in Wrigley, and he's going bridge, okay? But he has struggled on the inner half of the plate, which has been kind of telling. So lefties like a Carlos Rodon, they know they can go in for effect. And we'll pause this real quick. Bring up his splits, S-Rod, since 2015. Okay, take a look at this. Kind of his MVP season in Boston was I don't want to say an outlier, but that's as good as it gets, right? From 15 to 17, on base kind of mirrors what he's done the last 3-4 years. Slugs on par, weighted runs created plus is certainly a little bit higher now. But he had that monster year in 2018 where everything clicks and he wins the MVP. So he gets off to the slow start a little bit early this year. And they start talking about how do we get him going on balls on the inner half of the plate and get him right. Stand him up taller. So bring me up the side-by-side and pause it right out of the gate. This is April 22nd, and I'm talking about feel versus real. I'm talking about minimal adjustments, okay? Here he is in Petco, struggling, and this is him this week, over the weekend in Chicago. Take a look at the 50 in his jersey. A little bit more stretched here. So what you're seeing is he's closed up his base just a smidge. So what does that do? We always talk about it. Sometimes Mookie's a guy that starts here and wants to get into his legs. He's got that rubber band move where he kind of creates this move right here. But you lose your barrel. You always want to know where your barrel is, and you always want to be able to get it on plane, because there have been moments over my career, and I'm sure everyone else who's played in the big leagues, you get a heater middle, and you think you're going to roast it right up the box, and next thing you know, it's a grounder to third, and you're running to first going, I don't get it. I thought I was all over that pitch. So what do you want to do? You want to get into your most athletic position to know where your barrel is at all times, and that it could be working in synergy with what you're trying to accomplish. So run this. So just staying a little bit taller, getting his bat head on plane, creating just a little different point of contact. So pause. Same thing happened in 2017. Kind of struggling. Chili Davis comes to him. I'm sure teammates come to him and say, hey, maybe shorten up a little bit, stand a little taller, get a little bit more athletic. You're probably one of the most athletic players in the game.
Look at his hands.
Look at the difference, Lauren, right? So 2017, this is right before he made the change. He made the change kind of September of 17. He's way wider in his base. Hands lower, And in 2018, he comes and shows me that, and he goes on to win the MVP. So run this real quick. Hands eventually, run that back one more time. Even though your hands, all the way. All the way. Keep going. There you go. Even though your hands start in different spots, eventually, that's why I always say, I try and tell my son, everything, a house is built foundation up. Everything's got to be built foundation up from the legs up. So it's like I always go back to Craig Counsell and Tony Bautista, some of these guys I played against. They were starting in the most obscure positions you can possibly be in, but you get to the point of contact. Everyone gets there kind of similar look. So run this. But the hands are different, but it's more the base I wanted to focus on for him to be a little bit more athletic. So then I wanted to go and look at, you can get out of this, what I wanted to go to is, does he look very similar? 18 to last night. Started over. I actually think he could get even more up under him a little bit in 18, and look at the hands. Now, maybe that's high velocity, and he's trying to eliminate a little bit of movement in his hand play, so he's able to get to that high velocity a little bit easier than in 2018. But I even think there's more room for him to get even more comfortable at the plate. It's just, you fight all year. You fight all year. Like I said, it's a game of constantly watching video, what guys are trying to do to you, how they're attacking you, what your weaknesses are, and trying to grind that out. Bring up the last board. Mookie Betts, stats on pitches on the inner third of the plate from 15 to 22 versus the MLB average. I mean, in a Dodger uniform, this has been his bugaboo. So if you don't think teams are going to challenge him in, lefties bury it in, righty sinkers in, he's got to find a way to combat that. You know, if you leave the ball out over, it gets absolutely torched. And then with the Red Sox, you couldn't get inside. Maybe that's a product of Fenway Park and him wanting to hit a bunch of doubles off that wall, but the MLB average is 224. This won't last for much longer. He looked comfortable in the box over the weekend.
Even the best, constantly tinkering, right?
You have to. If anyone, he's been one of the biggest ones with JD, right? Mm-hmm. That whole keeping the bottom hand almost palm towards the sky. That was something we never heard of. It was always contact, roll out of it, and go. These guys are trying to create this plane to get that ball elevated.
Miguel Cabrera talked about that, too.
Yeah.
To the
They've won 6 in a row, and they've given up just 60 runs all season. They're in Pittsburgh tonight.